Una domanda in seconda fila, la signora.
Una domanda al regista.
Ah, scusa, hai ragione, ha risposto soltanto Colin Farrell. Vuoi riproporla tu adesso?
Avevo chiesto al regista a proposito, ecco, se lo ricorda, ok, grazie.
I remember. My father was a New York City police officer. I grew up in that culture as a child. What I think was always fascinating to me as a kid with my father, my dad was, I guess, what would be considered an unorthodox cop. He would be in his squad car playing his guitar in the back seat, and his partner would be writing poetry. This guy named Frank Keating, they were partners for 11 years. He was obsessed with James Joyce. He loved Thomas Jefferson. I remember as a boy, he gave me a copy of the portrait of the artist as a young man. He said, "You must read this." So this was not going on in the police department. It was very uncommon. They were surrounding my father were the more traditional kind of New York City cops, and I absorbed a lot of the stories around the dinner table and barbecues and things like that that were just embedded in my brain. And there was just I guess just sort of a social factor in regard to the behavior of these guys, and that was always in my world. So when I set out to write the script, I just had a lot of ideas swirling inside of my head, which I walked Joe through. But also, there was a lot of things going on in the world post 9/11, because as I think you mentioned about the incident of 9/11, what started out initially was to tell a very specific story after 9/11. I mean, I'm from New York. I lost a lot of friends that day. Everything just changed after that. And we all know how much it's changed. Just leaving the country now, what's going on in the elections and everything over there. But what started to infiltrate the script was the idea of institutional corruption. Because that was sort of, we had discussed it early, but it became such a part of the landscape of our country after 9/11. The colliding sort of entity, there was a lot of corporate malfeasance going on with Enron and things like that. Abu Ghraib, Guantanamo, the administration. For me, these were all corrupt institutions that I observed. And growing up in New York, we always heard that the police department was called the Blue Wall of Silence. That's what we always heard, the Blue Wall of Silence. You could not penetrate that institution. So I was dealing with an institution that I understood very well because I grew up with it, and I used that institution symbolically, or in a way a metaphor, to explore what else was going on in the world that I thought was very relevant, and used my personal understanding of an institution that touched my life to explore the institutions that were affecting not only our country but the world. And that was sort of the approach to the movie. So when I brought Colin on, and Edward and all the other actors, we would sit in my apartment and have lengthy conversations about, we didn't talk about cops necessarily, we talked about the world. And that was what began to inform the material. And then these guys would go out and hang out with cops and go on ride-alongs and drug busts and buy-in busts and investigations. And then they would come back. I called it method filmmaking, where the actors would go out and we would just be out in the street doing our thing, and then we would all come back together and apply all that and put it back into the script. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Di seconda fila, poi
Buongiorno.
Marco.
Una domanda sia per il regista che per Colin. Il film praticamente ci propone un codice d'onore molto solido. Ecco, vorrei sapere se loro hanno un loro codice d'onore in qualcosa, con qualcuno. Non so, nel mondo del cinema credo che non sia proprio così. Grazie.
I think it's interesting when you mention the movie industry because it's your codes are always challenged and forced to be compromised all the time in the business that we're in. And I don't know what it's like in your country, but I can tell you in America, to try to hold on to your artistic integrity in an industry that at times tries to sap that is always a challenge and a test of your codes. So, I mean, for me personally, just navigating my way through the industry and holding on. I mean, when you look at a movie like Pride and Glory, these are not films that get made every day in the studio system. It's not a popcorn movie. It's not what I call Nick movies. It's a challenging film. So just getting that kind of movie made required me to hold on to certain very specific artistic ideals, and then surround myself with actors. Colin, Edward, Noah, John Voight, who had similar ideals artistically and aesthetically, and it's something that I think that you deal with all the time.
Yeah, no steadfast code of honor or nothing that I have crafted through the years that I could say are the 10 commandments of my own life. But of course, there are, you carry yourself as a human being, not as an actor. That's as a human being first and foremost. With as much integrity, I think we all do, and you treat people with as much respect as possible. That simple and kind of twee notion that just that you treat people with respect. I remember there's few things I agreed with that were spoken at me as a child. I remember things like little children should be seen and not heard, which of course is a travesty of an idea, and don't speak unless you're spoken to, which of course is another horrendous thought. But one of the things that did stay with me that I think has an incredible validation, maybe now more than ever, is treat people as you wish to be treated. Something as simple as that would be about as close to a code of honor as I would have.
Buongiorno, sono Marco Spagnoli, c'è uno spettacolo primissimo. Volevo chiedere al regista, in maniera sintetica, e anche poi ho un'altra domanda poi per il signor Farrell. In maniera molto sintetica, questo è un film di genere che però ha un messaggio molto forte. L'unica maniera per sopravvivere al caos è la verità, dire la verità. Ecco, quanto questo è un film sicuramente di grande intrattenimento e molto avvincente, ma quanto le importava veicolare questo messaggio, che sembra un messaggio un po' retro, ma invece in realtà è molto nuovo, visto la figura poi di John Voight che sembra incarnare un vecchio modo di pensare. Invece Colin Farrell volevo chiedere, questo è un film anche sul rispetto del lavoro delle persone, quali qualità rispetta di più negli attori con cui lavora e per quali qualità vorrebbe essere rispettato dai suoi colleghi? Grazie.
That's a very interesting question because it's a subjective thing. If Edward's character didn't hold on to his soul, truth wouldn't have prevailed, and they would have moved on. I mean, the old man, John Voight, his truth was honoring the institution. The institution was more important than the truth. So, I guess I'm always hesitant to talk about messages of movies because I think when people go to a film, whatever's going on for themselves in their lives and they take their personal experiences to cinema, then they get out of it, what somebody else may not. But I guess Edward was the vehicle to touch upon the message that you're referring to, which was in order to hold on to your integrity, in order to be able to get up in the morning and feel like you're alive, walking in truth, and honoring your soul, that is what Edward's character Ray needed to do.